Okay, back to finishing up our container with the lid. And what I'm doing is I went ahead and put my container back together. I'm being very gentle with it. I have a few little nicks in it. So I've moistened my fingers just slightly. Got a little bowl with a little bit of water in it. And as you can see, my fingers are slightly shiny. And I'm just kind of rubbing them together and just being very careful not to put too much water on this at all, because you can always run it with water. Remember, you can use a spoon to do some smoothing. And I've also noticed that toothbrushes also help. If you use a toothbrush and you kind of rough it up a little bit, an area, and then go back and use your finger on it, and the toothbrush has been dipped in water slightly, that will also smooth an area. Now, for decorating, you can make all kinds of shapes out of clay. As long as they're small shapes and they're not too thick, they'll work. Here's a little shape that I made just by taking the clay and going like this. This is called the pinch method. I'm actually going back and I'm pinching the edge of this so it could actually go on like that. I can also do some carving on it. I've got a paper clip here. I can carve on this and change the shape of it. I could turn this into a recognizable object, such as a little fish or something like that, or even a leaf coming up. And this is all called the pinch method. You probably have pinched clay before if you've used clay and not known maybe what it was called, or maybe you were taught what it's called. There's with my paper clip again, flattening that edge, and that will work on here. This looks like it could almost be turned into a shell. I go back and I use a pointed object such as a pencil or a paper clip. Whatever line I put into this, it's going to shrink up a little bit, so sometimes paper clips don't work. I'm going to use a pencil because I know as this clay dries, it will start to shrink. And any line I put in it will be a smaller line later after it's fired. So I'm adding some lines in this to make this look more like something that would come from the ocean or the sea. Could be perceived as a shell or a piece of vegetation that grows. And I'm going to attach it to the top, and that could be a knob that could be used later to lift that off, but you wouldn't ever want to use this till after it's been fired. If you try to use the knob now, it would probably mess up your clay piece. I've seen a lot of people mess up their clay by grabbing knobs and trying to pull when clay has not been fired. It's very fragile at this point. I'm going to add a little bit of scoring and slipping. That's where you take a wet toothbrush and you just rough up this edge, and that creates a glue called a slip, which is actually mud. I'm going to rough up the edge that it's going to stick to. I'm going to put it down there, and then I'm going to roll a real small coil in my hands, a little bitty coil like that, and I'm going to add that coil to the outside like that. And then I'm going to use a tool. Sometimes paper clips work okay, sometimes a toothpick, or even the end of a pencil. You know, if you're using your pencil, just make sure you wash off your pencil before you leave so you can use it for some of your other classes. We don't ever want to take pencils out of our classroom materials, though, that belong to everyone that comes into the art room, because we don't want clay in the little white boxes. So I'm adding more clay along this edge. This is called blending. So I scored, I slipped, and I blended, and now I have a little piece coming off of the top. Now we can go on with our coil, and we can actually drape the side of this to help make a decoration. But I would have to attach this by taking my toothbrush and roughing up this edge, called scoring and slipping again, and then letting it go down. I have people that make some beautiful designs, but if they don't put them on with scoring and slipping and blending, then those designs pop off. So this design actually goes from this side to this side. And you're probably wondering how we're going to get this open now, because here I am going clear across from the top, which is the lid, to the body, and it looks like it's going to be stuck and I'll never be able to get my lid off. Well, there's a trick. And the trick is, you take your paper clip and you find where that line was for the lid and body, and you go right along next to it, so these will come apart. So I'm going to turn it at the other side too. And here's my line right here, so I'm going to follow that and cut. And now I can pull that apart, and when it goes back down, they join up. So I have this continuous line that goes back like that. Okay. Now, some other things that you can do is to make a slab out of clay. This is a slab. It's a thin piece of clay, and all we do to make a slab is to take a piece of clay. And sometimes people like to roll it first. It really doesn't matter, but I rolled mine. And now I'm going to use the edge of my hand, and I'm just going to push. And here I flatten this piece of clay, and since I rolled it first, it turned into a circle. And I could add that on the end if I wanted to, but it's kind of big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my finger, make it a little bit smaller or thinner, and I'm going to cut a leaf shape out of it. This is a little leaf shape. Now if that's still too big, I can go back and I can cut it in half like that and make even a smaller shape out of it. I'm going to add these onto this area. So I've got like some little pieces coming off of it. But there again, I have to score and slip. I'm getting this all wet. I'm going to add it onto there. So we have a little piece coming out that could be seen as a leaf. If I go back and I put some lines in it, then it looks a little bit more real. And I can use my other piece for the same thing. I can keep going around, adding little shapes wherever I want to, but making sure I score and slip them and blend them into the edge. So with my paper clip, I'm going to go back and make sure this piece here that I added on to is blended along the edge. If we have big gaps there, they're going to fall off. Okay? As I'm decorating this, I'm going to leave the lid onto the body. If I keep taking it off and on and off and on, I'm going to keep bending this up and causing a lot of stress on my clay. So that's real important. So I'll leave you to work on your containers now, and I hope that these instructions have helped you.